Well, good morning, everybody. You don't normally see me like this first thing before a match, but I'm just going to let you know I'm voicing this one over. I've got an angler about 5 or 6 meters that way, 5 or 6 meters that way. I didn't want to sound like a madman talking to myself, and so yeah, I thought I'd just film it, see how it goes, and maybe voice it over afterwards if it's worthwhile. It's a nice, interesting day, just swapping and changing and doing bits and bobs. So I'm not going to waffle on too much now. Just letting you know. I am voicing it over. Sorry about my dodgy Brummie sort of accent. It's a weird accent I've got. I don't know what it is. But yeah, hope you enjoy it. I'm not going to do all my videos like this, but on this one, or whenever the pegging's really, really tight, I might have to resort to a post-match voiceover. So, oh yeah, and one more thing before I forget. I get a hell of a lot of support for my YouTube videos, and I really, really appreciate it. Without your feedback and that, it makes it all worthwhile. But I do get people saying, can we support me in some way or shape or form? I thought about Patreon and things like that, but I've not gone down that route. But there is a new facility now. If you're watching it via YouTube, down there somewhere is a button called Super Thanks. And if you do like my videos and you really want to help and support me, I'm by no means begging or asking you to, but there is a Super Thanks button there, and you can show your appreciation for the hundreds of videos I've done over the years. And if I have helped you in any way, all this content you do get for free. So, but if you want to show your appreciation, brilliant. If you don't worry. Enjoy the video, and I'll see you afterwards. All in. Right, I'm kicking off on the method feeder, tight across to the island. I'm on Pollawyn, peg 18, and the middle of the high bank, a very average peg in what has been a very average section.
See that? Blondie just rolled 4 times in your peg then. He just went... for a minute I thought you'd got it on. You know, they sometimes jump.
That was a blonde F1. There's loads of them in Whiteacres now. They flip and dance and do all sorts of things in your peg. Ever so hard to catch. Loads of them. Really interesting fish. Really nice to catch.
That didn't take long, did it? He's sticking his tongue out. Feeder master.
We're only about 6-7 metres apart here, and that's Dave Geldart on the next
Carp
peg.
as well.
Yeah, that's Dave Geldart on the next peg, and he tends to fish the feeder everywhere he goes. He's very, very good at it. Andy Geldart's dad, and Andy's a really, really good angler, obviously, and Dave's a very, very good angler too. But yeah, you don't want him on the next peg if it's a feeder match. And he does catch all day on that feeder, on a couple of lines. Really had me worried. So no bites at Chuck. I've been on that peg twice now in the 2 festivals, and everyone's caught on the feeder except me both times at the start.
The proper lad, isn't it? It looks big. Bigger than mine.
I'm chucking between 2 trees there, and the banks, the way the bank's caved in, it's not so nice. To my right, 2 pegs to my right, the next 2 pegs, I think it's 26, 27. They've got a lovely, you can tell it's still really undercut there, and they've been the boss pegs on the feeder. And it must be to do with that depth and the undercut, whereas mine's definitely eroded and gone in, and it's probably a bit too shallow and not enough cover for them. But anyway, I've reeled in, and I'm just feeding my pole line now. I like to chuck the feeder at the start and just chuck that and catch on that, and then worry about my pole lines and that after. Try and get that early run of fish, but sadly it didn't happen today. The feeder today, I thoroughly expected to catch, a third to half my weight on the feeder, and that didn't happen today. I'm not sure why, because I'm really, really confident of chucking that feeder across on Pollawyn. A little ground bait feeder, and dead maggots, anything from 1 to 3 maggots. But I've swapped to the bomb now. That's about, it looks further on with this camera angle, but it's probably 2/3 to 3/4. It looks like I'm chucking a lot tighter than that, but it's not, it's just the camera angle. Just feeding 6 mils with a 6 mil on the hook. I'll swap between a fishery 6 or a little band and wafter. Both definitely work. It's nice and deep.
Very confident this work.
Yeah, see, I'm saying I'm very confident this working. Now, I'm voicing over this today because I'm so close to every angle. I don't like talking to myself too much when I've got anglers either side. I just wanted to get on with my fishing.
Just flicking our caster down there, see if a blondie will come up. I've not fed down the edges because it's full of branches and that from previous experience.
The margins are full of branches that have all fell in. Last time I fished that peg, all I caught were branches on the bottom. Didn't matter what I did, even if I came off the bottom. So I didn't feed it to begin with. I just threw some casters. Hoped a little blondie might pop his head up. It's a little Carasio on the bomb. That's the Guru X Safe bombs, but I've put 14 to 16 slick in it. I had to retie all my elastics, so rather than like the Black Hydra or something it comes with, I've popped 14 to 16 slick in it. It seemed quite nice actually. Feed once or twice and chuck straight over. Nice little plop. Nice little bomb. But yeah, I thoroughly expected this, the bomb line and the feeder line, to be what I do for a good 2/3 of the match. That one had it straight away. That's how you want them. And I'll vary anything from like 6-inch to 18-inch tail. Some days I want a short one, some days I want a long one. But I've got loads of confidence on this bomb on these sorts of venues. I've spent a bit of time bomb fishing, and I've got a feel for it now. I feel I know what's going on. I think it's a little carp. Yeah. Scroty carp. Any other venue that'd be £5 or £6, but there seems to be a lot of really long, lean, almost empty carp on this venue. I don't know why. They've just got no bellies on them, like they've not been eaten. There's loads of food going in, so I don't know why they're not fatter than what they are. And there's loads of natural food in Pollawyn, but they just seem really long with no bellies. And you can see every peg in to my left. I think Colin Mulholland's on the end peg and he's got an empty platform. And then the last peg to my right in the section's got an empty platform, but we're all in a row. So it is tight, so you haven't got too many options. I'd love to see a bit more room on the high bank. It's not the flyer area it used to be. There's lots of gaps now, and with F1s dominating, anywhere where there's a gap or a margin, that's where you want to be now. Shallower water. You need to get into that shallower water for F1s. So I've swapped to the Waggler. The wind's dropped a little bit, and I've been loose feeding, and some days those fish want, I mean, they're moving around and splashing. So anything from 2 foot to sort of 5 or even 6 foot deep you can catch on the Waggler on Pollawyn on that high bank. And I'll swap Wagglers and everything. I really fancy catching a few on the Waggler, but I think I'm probably only using £4 line there, but it's still skeeting through a little bit. You can leave it hanging and get bites on Pollawyn, but not today. It was just skeeting through a little bit horrible. So I've had a few quick casts at like 3 foot. Well, 2 to 3 foot, and in a bit I'll swap to a longer, slimmer Waggler and try much deeper. But I think I had 1 bite on this. Some days it's the best method, but they just didn't seem to want it today. They've just been hammered a little bit. I think the fish there were just a little bit on edge and low weights. So speed this bit up. A lot of casts for no reward. Yeah, so it's just swapping to a longer Waggler now. Just a normal straight peacock Waggler. I do that quite a bit. These are loaded floats with interchangeable swivel connectors, so you can just swap between one and the other. But a longer, slimmer Waggler is better when you're fishing deeper and leaving it in the swim a little bit longer. So we pop that on and give it a go. But I'll tell you now, it didn't work. Pushing it up with the rubber float stops. I tried all sorts of depths, but you can just tell it's not going to work. So I went back to the bomb and the feeder after that. But you can see the wind is skeeting left to right quite a bit. It just wasn't comfortable for fishing the Waggler. You see that set pretty deep there. Back on the method, trying to chuck it tight. I think in hindsight I perhaps should have chucked a metre off. So I noticed that's where Dave Geldart next door was catching. He seemed to catch better in that slightly deeper water. This is my one and only fish on the method. It's a big Carasio. Not an F1, a Carasio.
Carl the Carasio, not Freddy the F1.
Yeah, they don't weigh a lot, those Carasio, unfortunately, whereas the F1s tend to be really chunky fish. I'm just swapping to the long pole now with I fished 13.5 metres, I think, because the wind was pretty tricky, and it also meant I could loose feed casters quite accurately over the top. So I've gone out to 13 metres. Wasn't overly expecting this to work because the venue's been fishing so hard, and I think I might have had a bite or two and that was it. We're not really getting fizzes or anything. Tried all sorts over there, but I don't spend too much time on a method I'm not convinced is going to work, and that was it. That's why I started loose feeding casters over the top, because I thought I was more likely to catch some fish shallow in the conditions than I was on the bottom. They don't seem to want to be on the bottom too much. He's got a fish on next door I can see in the background. I think he had that on a while. Some big units in Pollawyn, and when you only have to like 40-50 pound, you only need 4 or 5 fish potentially. But there's a lot of these F1s, they're what you build your weight up on now. Little stockies and F1s and blonde F1s and ghost F1s and all sorts of chunky little fish.
What do you say, it's a cod? It's about 10 times bigger than the cod I had from the port and starboard. Smallest cod I've ever seen, that were.
I love eating fish and chips at port and starboard, but that bit of cod I had was very, very small. There you are, back on the bomb. Definitely the best line on the day. A little carp. That was on a little yellow banded wafter. Tend to start in a pellet, but you'd be surprised what you catch on that wafter. But that was it. You seem to get a couple of fish, then nothing, and you've got to come off it and rest it and then go back on it again. But I've just swapped to well, it's a bit of worm over my caster shallow swim. I'm fishing 10 to 12 slick for a standard long kit, because you don't know what you're going to hook. No, I wouldn't fish short kits on Pollawyn. You're asking for trouble if you hook a 8 or 10 pound carp. You won't get them out. So just fish normal long kits. There's not enough fish. You don't have to have a big enough weight to be messing around with short kits or shallow kits. You can catch all sorts shallow on here, but again, the venue's moody. It's heaving with fish, but I just think they're just sat there watching you. Get a few missed bites off silvers. What you want is an odd big F1 amongst them, and a big skimmer or something. You catch a lot of bream and stuff shallow some days. Not today. A few missed bites on worm. I know if I was straight hooked a caster, I'd have a little rope to chuck, so I'm trying to be a bit more selective. Because it's a really awkward ship behind you. You can just about get 13 metres behind you in one piece, but it drops off sharply. And it's a little bit precarious. And if I'm shallow fishing, I'd try and single ship rather than double ship, but sometimes you've got to do both. That's a nice chunky roach. There just weren't enough of those. I'd happily catch those all day, but there just wasn't any feeding. Just catch an odd one. And I'm trying to use gear. I'm probably fishing 012 or 014 bottom there. You need to be able to get a carp out of your kit. The roach and that are kind of incidental. This is my one and only decent fish shallow. A nice Carasio, about a pound. I thought, here we go. There must be some more of these, but nope. Never had another quality fish on this shallow line after that. And I sacked it off, but maybe I should have just kept it going, but you just know. And I didn't want to end up feeding here, there and everywhere, so I did have ultimately stopped feeding my shallow swim. This was a bit of a false dawn, this Carasio, and I couldn't get him in the net. A shocking netting, look. Oh dear, Johnny boy. Not very pretty fish, those Carasio, and they don't weigh a lot, but they're still quite nice to catch. And that's on a skimmer line. I think that might have been on meat. Can't remember what I fished there. I think it would have been a bit of meat. Just one skimmer, and again, that's all I caught there. It's one of those days you catch a fish off a line, and that was it. One Carasio shallow, one skimmer short, one Carasio on the method. Now I'm just fishing down the reeds there. That duck didn't know, did he? Or she, should I say. Yeah. Stay away from my margin, you. I ended up fishing anything from half depth to full depth on this line. This was off the bottom. I had a few chunky perch off the bottom. Been thrown in some casters. And then I actually plumbed it up. It was 4.5 foot deep down there. And I did catch some fish on the bottom, and strangely this time I didn't catch any sticks. Whereas last time this peg was full of branches and sticks down the bottom, so maybe someone had cleared them out, I don't know. But that's the one reason why I didn't feed it. Plus you've got someone so close to you either side. I'd love to have done it up to another margin, another platform. Some nice chunky bonus fish down there. I think I even had a skimmer down there and stuff, but just ticking over. I've not caught fast or loads of fish. Obviously the way I've edited, looks like I have, but nice perch that. Very nice perch. Lost him at the scourge, yeah. Some massive perch in this lake. Again, swapping lines, that seems to be the thing on Pollawyn. You just got to keep swapping and changing, unless you're on a shed full, which I rarely am. You just got to keep swapping and changing lines. Catch a fish or two, move. Catch a fish or two and move. Another long lean carp. At this point, I'm feeling I'm really behind. I can see two anglers to my right, he's catching really, really well. And the two anglers to my left, I'm convinced are beating me. So I've got a little bait up feeder there, or a biggish bait up feeder. And I'm putting in 3 big feederfuls of ground bait over there, just to try and make something happen. And maybe sort of pull a few people's fish as well. You've got to try and make something happen sometimes on these matches. And I do gurn when I fill a feeder, I don't know why, but I open my mouth and do some strange facial expressions whenever I load a feeder or fill a pole pot. Plop. clumsy old feeder to chuck in, but it went in nice. I think I put 3 feederfuls in. Hardly squeeze it in at all, so it empties really fast. Almost exploded on the surface. Last one. Boosh. I don't mind it crashing in because it obviously makes a bit more noise and helps the feed eject a bit more. I'm also just up my feed on that 6mm pellet line, on the bomb line. A lot of people fish 8mm pellets on this bomb, but it's full of F1s now, so you might as well fish something that they can eat easier. And I think 6mm sink really fast anyway. Back down the side, just feeding bits of worm and bits of castor and stuff. Bit of worm's definitely best down there. Nice big chunky bit of worm sometimes. It's very rare that I don't bring castors and worms to Pollawyn, because everything eats them. You know, on a hard day you can do half your weight of silvers and a bit of everything, you know, perch, skimmers, hybrids. It's becoming a little bit more F1-y now, and the F1's like all of that as well. Whereas pellets are a bit more of a gamble. Everything eats worms and castors. Oop. But they all add up. Little hybrid. It's a nice fast way of fishing, but you can be a busy fool sometimes. You can spend like half hour, an hour down there, and then someone will catch a great big one. But luckily for me, I've caught a great big one down the edge, a nice ghosty. That's why, I mean, Pollawyn, a lot of people don't like this lake, but I really do, because you never know what you're going to hook next. And I love venues like that. The sheer unpredictability of it all. There's some real nice big fish in there. There's quality fish of all sorts. There's even barbel and tench and things like that in there as well. Big Carasio, big F1s, little F1s, ghosties. And this is a nice big ghosty. Probably about £7. Again, very long, no belly on it. Great big head, big eyes. A bit battered and war scarred, shall we say. But not a lot of weight to it, really. Certainly no belly on it. It's almost like it spawned out, but I know they haven't spawned there yet on that lake. I think that one wrecked my rig a little bit, so I've chucked the bomb back out, and I'm going to set up another... basically, I've caught a carp there now. I think I had that on an 014 up length. I've just going to up it to an 016 now. Start feeding a little bit heavier. Yeah, just putting a heavier hook length on. I started on a 16. I might even have had a 14 hook on this now. And I had it on 10 to 12 slick, but I've swapped it to 12 to 14 slick as well, I think. So just beefed everything up. If I'm going to hook another one, I want to be a lot more confident getting it out. I was quite fortunate with that one, getting it out, I think. Whoop. And that was it. That was my last fish of the day. I've got a weird Brummie sort of accent sort of thing. It's not I've not got I've got a face for radio, but my radio voice isn't great. So but anyway, I ended up with just under £40, £39 something, and I was really surprised with that. I was over the moon to find I was second in the 8 peg section with that, because I really thought, oh dear, I'm going to be 4/5 at best. I was convinced Colin Mulholland and Dave Goudart beat me. I think they've had 35 and 37 pound, and Dave especially, he's caught all day on that feeder. He's chucked on 2 spots, and but they've obviously been much smaller fish, and my fish have been quite chunky. You know, I've had some nice sort of bonusy sort of fish and stuff that have helped me over the line a little bit. And Colin's he's had a pallet to fish to on the end peg in our section. There's only 2 anglers in the section that have got an empty peg to fish into, and he's had some really big fish down the side, but I didn't realise he'd lost a few of those as well. A lot of foul lookers down there. So and then the section was one where I think Gavin Bridge 2 pegs to my right, 2 or 3 pegs to my right, peg 27, where it just overhangs a little bit nice there. And I've noticed that peg, or that area, just seems to be really good for the feeder. And he's also had 2 really nice carp short on meat late as well, I noticed. So, but he's fished really well there, so fair play. He thoroughly deserved to win the section there. But yeah, that's Pollawyn. It's a hard lake. 40-50 pound is a good weight on that lake. It's all relative. It's not a 100 pound lake, or you know, if you do 100 pound on Pollawyn, you've done very, very well. But normally, sort of like 70 pound often wins the entire lake. So I was happy to catch that sort of weight. Didn't fish at all how I expected. I really fancied catching on that feeder, and it was rubbish for me. Others have caught odd fish on it, but I just couldn't catch on it. I had that one big crassio. The bomb was really good. I should have persevered long pole on worms. I might have caught a few fish late, and maybe started big potting it and fishing a big worm maybe, or something like that. Maybe I could have persevered with that cast a shallow swim. But the best decision I made was mid-match, plumbing up a rig for down the side. It was there's so many options on that peg or that area, that sometimes margin fishing or fishing down the edge is one thing I say, right, I won't do that, I'll just concentrate on the bomb or the feeder. But because the feeder weren't working, it gave me an option to fire up the margin. And yeah, I've caught some really nice variable fish. I must have had at least 15 pound of my weight down there. So and you never know what you're going to catch. So yeah, that was a really important thing for me to do. That was sort of a mid-match decision that I think was good. Some of my other decisions were definitely not so good, but yeah. Anyway, it was a nice day. I enjoy fishing Pollawyn. It's hard. It's very close pegging. It's annoying when you see anglers further up with loads of room and acres of space and 2 empty pegs that way and 5 empty pegs that way and stuff, and you're all like boxed in on what used to be years and years ago the best area, but it's not anymore. So you want to be up the arms, or you want to be somewhere you can reach the island, or you just want an empty peg to be able to fish down the margins and stuff. And you hadn't got that where we were, so you just plug away. What you have got though is the depth, and because it's deeper than anywhere else on the lake, there are fish on the sort of in the middle of the lake, often past halfway out of pole range, and that's where I capitalised and caught them on the bomb. So but yeah, interesting day. That is my what was that? That was day 3. Day 4, I didn't even take my cameras to my peg, and I only put 1 keep net in. I drew Twin Oaks about peg 21. Not a very good peg. It had been rubbish all week, and the lake had been fishing poorly all week, and I wasn't in a mood for filming that day, and I didn't film, and I didn't do any good. I think I was 4th. I was 5th in my 8 pegs, I think, there, and I caught some fish, but I should have done a lot better that day. And then the last day, I drew 29 on Trelawney, and I had I had a nice day. I had a really nice day. I mugged 3 big carp for £20 early doors, and then I've just got my head down. And I've had about what have I had? £75. So say I've had about £70. Andy Gallett to my left had £80, and then the end pegs had £90, and we were the top 3 on the whole of Trelawney. It was a nice day's fishing, but the wind was blowing our way, and basically the end peg was first, Andy Gallett was second, and I was third, and you could just tell the fish had followed the wind. But I never filmed that one either, I'm afraid. So, but that was it. So that was my festival. I've ended up 16th out of 120 anglers. Could have been a bit better. I was 1 point off the top 10. and I was definitely achievable. And my dropper on the 4th day was poor, but I'd had 2 firsts, a second and a third, so not too bad fishing for whiteacres. Didn't quite get the rub as normal. It started off really well, and but yeah, you know, that's what these sections are won and lost by: who's around you, what gaps you get, who doesn't fish, who doesn't do whatever, and all sorts of things. But that's what I take. So, but anyway, I was down there with the family as well. We all had a great time, and I enjoyed it down there. And I will see you probably a more local match next time. And but anyway, I don't know where I'm going or what match it is, but I will see you again on the bank.